I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands on which we stand, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations, and I'd like to pay my respects to their elders, past and present. So welcome again to Parallels 2017. We're very excited to be here. And just a bit about Parallels. So the format of the evening is we have 11 lots of speakers coming up. Originally it was 10, and then one really exciting game crept up. And so I was like, oh, it's 11 games, 11 doesn't sound as great. But then one of my friends, Robin, he was like, no, Chad, it's okay. It's 11, it's 2 ones, 2 parallel lines. So I was like, okay, great, I have to tell this story when the event starts. Freeplay is Australia's largest and longest standing independent games festival. We've been around since 2004 and have been doing really exciting and interesting things since then. And our last festival was in 2015 when we celebrated the 10th year anniversary of Freeplay. Like I said, we have 11 sets of speakers. All of them do very fantastic and unique and interesting things with games. We have all sorts of stuff ranging from experimental performances, which I have no idea about, to very personal games, games that are being demoed live or even shown for the first time. So we're really excited to be here. With all that being said, I would like to invite our first set of speakers to present their game, Wayward Strand. So, huge round of applause.
It's great help to have you here. I don't know if your mum said, but we just had a girl quit on us, and with the inspection in a few days, well, suffice to say there'll be plenty for you to do. The main thing is just to keep the old folks company. For lots of them, maybe their husbands or wives have died, or maybe they don't get too many visits from their family. They get a bit lonely, you know. So I'll have lots of other things for you to help out with as well. But the main thing will be just to keep them company. Your mum said you're a bit shy, but that's okay. These folks have plenty to say. It shouldn't be too much work for you. I'm taking you to meet Ida first. She's really friendly. This is Casey, who I told you about yesterday.
Oh yes. Hello, dear. I'm Ida. A pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I've got a few things to see to, but I can see that you two are going to get along like a house on fire.
Hello, I want to thank Freeplay for having us and for curating such a great lineup. It's a pleasure to be back as a part of this vital arts festival, and we welcome Chad as director. This is his first event in his role, as he mentioned. I'm Marigold, this is Jason, this is Russell, this is Maze, and Georgia are writers in London at the moment. We're very excited to be showing snippets of the vertical slice of Wayward Strand, which we made last year. We considered the slice as a bit of a testing ground, but you should know that there'll be a vast amount of change in the next 6 months, fast approaching. We'll be presenting 5 micro talks, intercut with short cuts of footage from the demo, and we hope you enjoy.
I'll come find you if there's something else I'd like you to do, but otherwise, you just go at your own pace.
Alright, so Wayward Strand is a story set in Australia, in rural Victoria. It's about Casey, a teenage girl who explores an airborne hospital and over the course of a few days gets to know the patients within. The structure of the story is pretty unique. The characters that you meet over the course of the game each follow their own schedule regardless of your actions as the player. The nurses work, the patients reside, the characters each move and talk and bounce off each other as the crisscrossing tides of their stories flows forward.
But yes, I don't really need to be up here anymore, I suppose. But I do like it up here.
There are 17 characters on screen and several more in the script who make up the rest of the lives of our patients and nurses. Most of the characters are seniors who have experienced these lives before our introduction to them. Casey is a mature 14 and arrives on screen with just one relationship, a fairly tense one with her single mother Ruth, who's the head nurse. As Casey's relationship with her own family is explored, she meets and learns about the relationships of the patients, their relationships to one another, to themselves and their age, to their own families and histories, and of course as this happens, she forms relationships with some of them. The more time the player chooses to spend with any character, the more opportunity for that relationship to expand. We want to try to capture, without being prescriptive, the tension of forming relationships with strangers, especially adults and seniors, as a teenager dealing with self-consciousness, inexperience and duty.
It must be hard living up here with all of us oldies.
Sorry. Great. As Jason said, our game is set in Australia in 1978, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of that land, the Bunurong people, and their elders past and present as well. It's been very, okay, I'll talk. Our audience is wide and gives us an opportunity to focus on the very young and the very old. Something that none of us, I think, have had to do before, or got the opportunity to do before in our games. When writing our characters, setting, design, and establishing our values as a team, we identified gaps in our knowledge, but little did we know how huge those gaps were. So we used consultants to help. We found out cool things about the history and state support of Planetarium in regards to single mums and creating a self-sustainable industry. We found out about hospitals of the 70s and especially how that Planetarium was a hub for the local Gippsland area. Liz Bartlett, Belga's mum, told us about her working experience as a nurse and the Indigenous representation both in being distrusted as workers and undervalued as patients. We had consulted Dakota Barker on his research on health representation in games, and he's also Indigenous, which led us to Dan Turnbull from the Bunurong Land Council. He told us of local traditions and roles held by his community in being guides to transport people across borders. We've been able to come up with meaningful representation for a variety of people and infinitely richer stories. We're hoping that our project can be an example for our community to learn from as well.
Ah, there you are. I couldn't find you. I was in a flap. Now, I need your help with some filing.
My family has a history of working in architecture, and specifically in hospital architecture. It was my father's job, and of nursing, which was my mother's job. She also spent some years as an amateur historical researcher and has always encouraged me to engage with the lived experiences of seniors as a resource for historical and fictional storytelling. So all of this has put me in pretty good stead for working on a game like Wayward Strand, which is set in a hospital. with nurses and with senior patients. Drawing architectural drafts for hospitals and for ships emphasises function over form. The ship which Wayward Strand is set on once operated as a luxury liner, so the ship's fittings are all of an Art Deco sensibility. To imagine repurposing this functional deco space into a differently functional space in the 1970s has been pretty challenging. Hundreds of problems have had to be identified and then solved during the design process. Even the direction the ship is facing has been an important consideration, as the position of the sun affects particular narrative elements for patients with windowed rooms.
It's actually pretty nice here.
You sound surprised.
I thought it would be, I don't know, different.
The origin of our game is a personal story. Wayward Strand grew from an experience in my life, a touching moment that came amidst a string of bad news. It was a moment of insight into another's life, and I was left with a portrait of a secret desire that they had long held, an unfulfilled compulsion, trivial and charming, which was twisting into regret. It was also entirely unexpected. It struck me, and my experience of this moment was something that I felt compelled to share. However, as I spent time exploring the idea, I was drawn to expressing it through fiction. I didn't just want to tell people that story. It was more important for me to get across how I felt, rather than convey the specific autobiographical details. In addition to that, I quickly found there were other memories and ideas from disparate times in my life that shared a common theme, notably experiences with my grandparents. The story forming in my mind expanded to include those. As others joined the team, the story continued to develop. Wayward Strand isn't solely mine, and it doesn't have to be. It is giving me the space to share my stories, but it also grows with the experiences of everyone who is working on it. The project has resonated with each of us in a slightly different but harmonious way. We each pour in a little of our own personal histories. Jason spoke earlier about how characters in our game move to their own schedules, and so do their stories. So it's interesting to think about how each person who spends some time with Wayward Strand will experience our stories. They surely won't experience every moment that I hold here, but I do hope that each person will be touched by the unique tapestry of moments that they discover.
But you're very welcome back in here anytime you like. Even if you just need a break from your chores, this can be your secret hiding spot. I won't tell.
Thank you very much. We were really nervous about presenting this demo, and hopefully in 10 minutes we've been able to give you enough of an explanation to encourage you to come and find us over the rest of the week and ask any questions of us. You can also follow us on Twitter at Wayward Strand, or for more in-depth stuff, you can go to waywardstrand.com, and every now and then we write a dev blog.
What a beautiful game to start off with. Thank you so much. Up next, we have a team of two who is working on a really beautiful and very unique looking game. Ben, I met Ben at a recent IGBA. I was introduced to him through Ken Wong. And he told me about his game, and I instantly fell in love. I then went online to check it out, and it looked beautiful. So Ben has his work partner here, Jerry Verhoeven, from the Netherlands, to present their game, Totem. So huge round of applause.
bear with me. Sorry, I didn't expect to be juggling, so I have the controller here and the mic. Thank you very much, Chad, and thanks. We really appreciate being here to talk about Totem, and it's, well, I appreciate being here to, Jerry's actually, Jerry's just recently arrived, so I sort of crammed the talk solo, but Jerry and I make the game together. I'm essentially the art and writing and level design half of the equation, so obviously he's the one that really builds the game. So today, I just want to show you, probably, even though this is a very short presentation, it's the most we've ever shown of the game to this point, so like most other people who will probably tell you, there's still a lot to do. Even though we've been working on it for almost 2 years, and we met in China and have spent almost the majority of that 2 years together working on it. We've been doing so with a view to the work-life balance thing. So I had kids at that time, and it's very important to me to keep that balance in check. And having just recently come back to Melbourne, I'm still getting used to paying that much for coffee. So we are making Totem. This talk won't be too technical, though we have one of those if you do want to chase us afterwards. What I want to talk about today, very briefly, is what's at the heart of the game. And that's something that, as evidenced, we need to practice more. So please forgive me for using you as guinea pigs today. And also for not being perfectly ambidextrous. So what we have here is a build from just before we got on the tram today. And not on the tram, as Ken suggested. Though, you know, I'm sure. So what I want to just clarify is that I'll be showing various bits of visual from parts of the world being built. Because of my control limitations here, the player character, which you'll see moving around there, is normally the way you'd explore the world, but today we're sort of just panning and scanning through it.
Test. Okay, maybe if we attach this.
That would be a mercy. Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that feels good. Okay, so I've got some notes to talk through here while the presentation moves at its own pace. So the first question, are you a teller? I feel that we all are. We've come here to share knowledge, entertain one another, and to listen to each other. So one of the themes of the game is that a teller and the playable character is not one but many. Following the Muse is one of the main characters that you guide and guides you through the world of Totem Teller. They can transmit the signal of a story and realise new worlds. a big thing for us, as you'll see in the visual design, is that elements of the world that the game, from the level art to design to UI, feel somewhat broken, and that is where you see some glitch, but also compression, processing, and just lossy effects. This first happened when I actually created a GIF for a very early version of the game. I just really like how it looked, and for me it triggered, I think, a memory, a gaming memory. A lot of Amiga games that I used to play, and how they either have hand-painted sampled art or heavily vivid art, and of course pixel art. Different ways of reducing maybe an original image that made it sort of more beautiful, but also harder to sort of pin down. And I always had trouble looking at my art, so this let me see it through a different lens, and it exploded out to become one of the themes of the game. The feel of the game, what we want is a space that is between the raw inspiration and creation, so that kind of space before you, I won't say ruin, but realize an idea and come up with it, where anything's possible. So we want to try to capture the feeling of being in that space and hold on to it as long as possible, as long as you play the game, as long as it can keep your attention, as long as big as we can make it. So underlying the world's creation and its content are stories. As the player and the player character, you take on the role of the storyteller, and you must or can restore the world through restoring stories. And what I wanted to make clear today was that that process is something that's not goal-oriented. It's something you can do through exploring, finding pieces of the story and bringing them back to life. But whether you do that and to what degree, we want to leave more up to the player. At the end of this game, we want you to have an artifact, which I don't want to detail too much, but it's what becomes of the story you retell, and we want that to feel custom to each player's experience, like a summary of their particular journey through the world and the story that they've told. So the point that I wanted to make strongly was that sometimes things that are broken don't need to be fixed. If you feel that way, it's up to you what to resolve and what not to. Yeah, so the end result should be that it's your story, it's your game, and it is your place to explore and uncover. This, to be honest, is one of the hardest things for me in talking about the game and sharing it. Every time I consider doing a talk like this and think about the mechanical breakdown of our game, it always makes it feel sort of trite. So at the moment what I'm trying to do is find a way to talk about a game that isn't as defined by its mechanics. And even though a lot of people's minds will probably jump to the idea of what is either lovingly or aggressively called a walking simulator, we have a lot of what you would call traditional game mechanics. It's just summarising the game this way is difficult for me. I mean, we spent these 2 years finding a particular art style, working on tools for writing and localization, and a lot of other stuff in the back end that makes it possible to build it. Hopefully that is my plan, even though I'm here and it's a lot harder to do, to finish the game over the next year. I don't have any more to add to that. Yeah, I was going to made up your time.
Thanks so much, Ben. And thank you, Judy. Okay, so next up we have a really fun game that I'm personally really excited about. Sometime between 2011 and 2010 and 2012, we had the resurgence of local multiplayer games. These are games that a bunch of people would have to come together into the same room to play games together and around each other. Since then, we've had heaps and heaps and heaps of games. Like Andrew Brophy and I even founded Hovel Garden to play these public spaces. So I have a special place for these types of games. I'm proud to introduce Laura Voss, who is from Harmonious Games and has worked on a game called Putty Pals, which is a local multiplayer game. And yeah, huge round of applause.
Hello. Hello there. Alright, so you're going to play with me, Chad? So I wrote Chad in to play with me. I was going to play by myself, but I thought that would kind of defeat the purpose of the whole game. So we'll play together, and we'll see whether or not Chad and I make a good team. But also, I'll tell you a little bit about the inspiration for Putty Pals. Can you hear me okay with the music? Yeah, go for it. Alrighty. So this game actually started as a university prototype. And towards the end of that final year, we kind of thought, actually, maybe we could make something out of this. Maybe people want to play this after uni. So we graduated and we naively started a company and thought it was going to be awesome. Oh, Chad. Alright, you can do it. Yeah! And the idea behind Putty Pals was that just gonna leave my thumb out for you. Alrighty. So we were kind of sick of the fact that there weren't any more co-op games, it seemed. There were games that you would play together, but there weren't actual co-op games. So we decided to make our own and make it completely co-op. So you cannot play this game without someone else. It's meant for that kinematic experience between two people. Doing well, Chad, doing well. Alrighty, I'm gonna help you up here. Nice. Now could you please help me? Thank you. Thanks, Chad. You press the left button? Yeah. Alright, let's go. So, we wanted to also make a game without violence. Because in most platformer games, there's a ton of violence, there's always enemies, there's always some big boss, but we were like, surely that's not necessary. Surely the difficulty would actually come from learning to play with someone else. Alright, I'm going to bounce you up. Then if you hold the bottom button, yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. Now we hold hands and swing. Swing with me, Chad. Okay. And we found out that you actually don't need enemies. Often we get people to play the game and they won't even notice that there weren't enemies because parents with their kids playing and having the kids teach the parents, or the kids teach the parents. Did you say that? I did. Sorry, concentrating. And also watching older siblings and younger siblings teach each other how to play games. There's something really beautiful about the way that even kids as young as 5 are being really polite to each other and saying, could you please do this for me? Could you please do that? While they're saying thank you. And it's kind of not what I expected. But for some reason, we've made a game that encourages manners and positive behaviour, which is
not necessarily something we thought about when we created it. It just kind of was a beautiful thing that ended up coming out of it, and the experience of working together with someone. Nice, Chad. You're doing really well. Have you actually played a football? Oh, wow. Or maybe we're just like a super team. Also, we are on the Nintendo booth this weekend at PAX, and we're also in the Indie PAX Rising area. So if you're around at PAX this weekend, please do come by and say hello. I work with 5 other people. We're all as excitable as these characters. I think, oh no, sorry. I think our team really comes out in this game a lot. We're a bunch of weirdos who just like to play games together. Oh, that was nice. Very nice. I didn't actually plan like a proper talk for this. I just thought, you know what, we'll play it together and see what happens. So far it's been so beautiful. Thanks, Chad. Oh no. As you can tell, the putties get really sad if one of them dies. And then if we get far away from each other, so you can say that, they get really sad and then they reach out for each other. There were 2 reasons for this. One was the fact that we wanted players to feel something for the putties, but also it was a nice way of keeping the players together because we found that vignettes and forcing the players to stop at an edge wasn't really, it didn't feel good. So we thought, why not make the putties express themselves and show how much they hate being apart from each other. Really just promote friendship. How are we doing for time, by the way? Are we? Okay. Alright, let's finish this level. Let's just ace it. Let's get that. I'm sorry, I should have interrupted you. Alright, jump in there for me. Doing good, buddy. Doing good. Alright. Let's finish this. Such a great team until that moment. Alright, let's. Are you messing with me now, Chad? Alright, you ready? Yep. Alright, we did it. Yay!
That was so much fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Up next, we have a VR game called OfficeBots Reality Bytes. I don't think we're showing it in VR form today. That's okay. But it's a really exciting and different type of VR game, and that's what I really like about it. So if we could please have Prani and McKinley up onto the stage with a huge round of applause.
Hi everyone.
So,
Chad mentioned, hi, I'm Pranny. I'm the founder and creative director and major developer at FutureStateMachine, a Melbourne studio. Now, I'd like to thank Chad and Freeplay for giving me the opportunity to speak here today, and about my recent passion project called OfficeBots Reality Bytes. It's available on Steam if you're interested. Now, this is my first solo talk, so I must admit that I'm incredibly nervous, actually terrified. I'm super shy, especially in a large crowd, so hopefully I won't start talking suddenly and start spraying at you like it's not possible or something. Now, before I started my indie studio, I worked in the film industry for about 10 years on several well-known productions. OfficeBots was developed as a OfficeBots was developed as a solo project with the occasional programming help of Murray Lorden, who I really appreciate for being there for me. When I got stuck because programming is definitely not a forte of mine. It's an escape the room-esque experience, adventure full of adorable cute robots. They're quirky, and you get to know better as the game progresses. Now, most of them are unhappy. They didn't follow their dreams for various reasons, and you get to find out why throughout the game. Now, when I started making this game, I think I skipped way ahead in the slides, so ignore that, and I'm just going to stop on that. When I started making this game, I was working part-time as a games master in an escape room because it gave me the flexibility to develop my own creative game projects on the side while providing me with financial security to enable me to stay afloat. Now, for various reasons, I'm going to avoid all the nitty-gritty boring details with that. I was pretty miserable there. Strangely though, in the midst of all of that, it inspired me to create this game. Also, after a rather brutal breakup from a long-term 13-year relationship, which had destroyed my self-confidence and faith in myself and my own abilities, I was struggling to put myself out there. So, yeah, pretty much fear and rejection and that sort of thing. So that's another reason why I ended up in that escape room. Now, I'm first to admit that this is an incredibly niche experience. It's currently only available on the HTC Vive platform, and its focus is on storytelling and characters. So yeah, it's about, what that says? Storytelling and characters. And doing small quests to improve their happiness. I wanted to make a non-violent game which encourages empathy. The highly immersive nature of virtual reality headsets have led to them being referred to as movie machines, which many people in VR know. It's a very powerful medium for storytelling. As someone who's interested in telling unique, heartfelt, quirky stories, be it with very personal tones, it was incredibly exciting and inviting for me. I wanted to use the medium of virtual reality games to subtly nudge players into thinking about their own lives, their hopes and their dreams. This slide is not going to keep up with the talk, but you know, that's all good. Now, I was going through a reflective period. For a while, thinking about life, about events and circumstances that people go through and how they can affect the direction and the path that a person takes in their life. For example, a person may not feel like they can accept their dream job, for example, because someone that they care about is fallen really ill and they need to live care instead. Life doesn't always go as planned. Stuff happens. Dreams get in the way. Dreams get put on hold and they're sometimes forgotten. Sometimes existing social structures limit a person's choices. You know, I wanted to express that in the game. And one which hopefully led people to be less judgmental of others and the situations that they're in, but also to create an experience that made a statement about life, about society, but one that was gentle and, not pushing them in any way. On top of everything that I mentioned, I wanted to develop a VR project with a relatively short turnaround. One which was scoped to be achievable by a solo developer because, this is a solo project. I was working part-time with limited skills as a programmer. I wanted to play to my strengths, which, in my opinion, are a keen eye for aesthetics and composition, a love of storytelling and design, and my own quirky personality and sense of humour. I noticed that there are a lot of VR games which focus solely on shooting, on killing, on scaring people. And I wanted to create something that was a bit different from this. One which focuses on getting to know characters instead, on helping people instead of hurting them. It's a relatively short experience where exploration is encouraged. The community, thankfully, has been quite receptive so far, and that's heartwarming as a small developer like me. So, I've thrown together a small video for you after we see a few little pictures. And yeah, hopefully it'll give you a bit of an example of the conversations, how the conversations work, how the gameplay works. Hope you enjoy it, but it does look better in VR because, there you get to experience the world bustling, living around you, breathing, moving, that sort of thing. So, oh gosh. Melbourne International Games Week. OfficeBots is 50% off until Monday. So if you own a Vive, grab yourself a copy, you can add it to your Steam library. Or, if you don't own a Vive, you could add it to your Steam library anyway. Customer hot chocolate and supporting unique, weird, vertical development like me, and help you make more unique experiences. Yeah, so thanks for listening, everyone.
Up next, we have a super talented person who's very new to the industry. I spotted her art and her games on Twitter and instantly fell in love. If I ever create a studio, I think Joanna would be one of the first people that I'd hire. So a huge round of applause for Joanna Tran.
Hi, I'm Joanna, and today I'm going to be talking about 2 games that I made for my Game of the Week class here at RMIT. I've just finished my 2nd year of game design a week ago, and and for the 2nd semester, Game Design Studio 4 was split into an animation stream and a Game of the Week stream. And I decided on the Game of the Week one because I really wanted to push myself and step out of my comfort zone. But I also mostly wanted to be taught by Doug and Michael again. Every week we assign a theme or topic, and we spend the next few days working on a game or a prototype of a game based on that topic. The road trip game that I'll be talking about was for the theme camera work, and the game called Do You Remember was for the theme voice. Road Trip is a very short interactive game that follows 3 friends, you being one of them, in a car road where you film the trip. You can interact with the very few things that are in the car, or listen to some cool free music. Road Trip was made with a very heavy focus on mood, colour and lighting, so that with all of those combined, I could create something that could convey a specific feeling. We were shown examples for the theme, and from those I decided I wanted to make a game where the player records everything that happens. I wanted it to be a happy and memorable kind of setting because when I think of events or things that are recorded, I think of birthday parties, vacations, or in this case, road trips, and this is all from personal experiences. I wanted to make the game focus on the feeling of happiness and excitement, and in a way evoke feelings of nostalgia in some people. I knew Road Trip was to have a nice warm summery feel, and when thinking of warm lighting and mood, the game Life is Strange came to mind. Where there's a scene with Chloe and Max and they're in a car and the lights are shining through the window, and it's a really pretty scene, and I wanted a similar vibe to that. In terms of colours and overall setting, I was inspired by an animated TV series called Gravity Falls, and in that, the opening scene, there's a shot of the woods, and the colours and lighting that they used for that was nice and warm, and that's how I wanted my game to feel, so I drew some inspiration from that. In the end, I was able to make what I have now within the week, thankfully, and I don't see myself expanding on this particular project in the future, but it does seem like something I could add to a bigger project, and it could just be a small part of it. Next I'll be talking about my game called Do You Remember? Do You Remember is a first-person exploration game that tells the story of 2 lovers. It's a game where you can chill or interact with the things that will tell you a story. Like the Road Trip project, this was created with a focus on mood and trying to make people feel something, not just through the narrative, but through the things that they see around them. This was an idea that I've been thinking about for months before the actual class happened, and when we found out about the theme, I was like, yes, I can finally kind of make it. I feel like nostalgia seems to be a recurring theme for me, because for this game, especially for the first scene, I made it so that the environment itself is somewhat empty, and it's just like a basic remote looking beach. But when I wrote up the narrative and the script for it, which I got my friend who lives all the way in LA to voice for me, and I'm so thankful for that. It really added to it. I tried to make it so that it was very general in terms of the things you say about the beach, but I wanted it to be descriptive enough so that people would feel in the environment in their minds based on their own experiences. And I'll just show some of the narrative. As the scenes go on, the story becomes more specific and personal to the characters in the game, and each scene has its own kind of mood different from the last. In this final scene, the story becomes more specific. I've added more things that you can look at, like notes or letters and pictures that give more context to the narrative. I had intended to add more scenes prior to this one and had other things to add in mind, but due to the time constraints, I wasn't able to. And because I didn't get to finish it, I do think this is something that I can continue on in the future and expand on the story and make it bigger. And that's probably something I can work on over the summer holidays. Making these games and pushing myself to create things week after week really allowed me to realize what I love doing and what I don't enjoy as much. I was also able to find out the things that I do well and things that I'm not so good at. And I've made so many games this semester that I didn't like or I wasn't proud of because I tried to make it something that had already existed or I just felt disconnected with it. And I like Road Trip and Do You Remember more because I connect with them on a more personal and emotional level. And they were based off of feelings that I wanted to convey in a game. It was also apparent that they were the more successful games in terms of what people liked out of my other Game of the Week games. And so it's a good indication of what I should work on more in the future. I'm hoping to create more games like these in the future, and I hope you will all look forward to them. Oh, wait, and Road Trip and other Game of the Week games that are made by my classmates will be showing at RSK on the 2nd of November till the 17th or 18th, yeah. And if you're interested, it would be awesome if you could all go and check it out. Thank you.
Test. Thank you so much for that. Okay, moving on. Where are we up to? Next up is a team of 2 from Queensland. We're very lucky to have them here, and they have a very special and different type of game. This game is played mostly by audio on a mobile device, and it is played by 2 players. So with a huge round of applause, I'd like to invite Ruby and Aaron onto the stage.
Is it still working? Is that good?
Hello.
Hello.
First of all, thank you so much for having us. It is such an honour to be here at Freeplay. Thank you, Chad, for inviting us.
I'd also like to extend thanks to Brendan Keogh for actually telling Chad that we exist. And finally, also very quickly, I need to give a special thanks to a close, dear friend of mine, Kimberly Clifford, who did all the graphic design for this. She's amazing, and I love her. So with that, let's move into some introductions.
Okay, so my name is Ruby, and usually I just do whatever I feel like doing. but I really love to create things based on personal experiences or things that are designed to help people communicate and connect better with each other. Unfortunately, despite this, I actually find it really hard to be open and honest about my own feelings. And even when I do know what to say, I don't usually know how to say it. I have a lot of trouble expressing myself and being open even with my closest friends. Not for lack of want, just lack of ability. But I want to be better.
That was really good. My name's Aaron, and I do things with words. And I wanted to make what we're about to show you because over the years I've become increasingly aware of the importance for emotional literacy. Without going into too much detail, I grew up kind of surrounded by toxic masculinity, and I've seen up close personally how damaging it can be. Also over the years, I've realised that the media experiences that I'm most drawn to are the ones that are emotionally literate. And so I want to help contribute to that so I can assist others and myself in being better. So with that, A Moment Between Us is a multiplayer interactive experience in which we present short stories about significant emotional events shared between two people, in which you choose to play as one of the two involved in the event. You then experience the moment from the perspective of your chosen character by listening to their internal thought process and the dialogue between the two of you. We'll also occasionally prompt you to physically interact with the person across from you, such as squeezing their hand lightly or sharing an awkward hug. So A Moment Between Us is multiplayer by necessity. As one person, you can never experience both stories at once. You will always be experiencing one person's version of the story, their experience with a moment. And the people we're targeting for this are those that already share strong emotional connections and are looking to expand their emotional literacy. We'd like to try and help because, honestly, it can be really hard to talk about difficult emotional situations with another person. And so we're attempting to provide engineered, authored scenarios that offer the opportunity to experience these conversations in a less confrontational atmosphere. Conversations like the status of your relationship, or morality and death, or that should say mortality. Sorry. Or modifying your perspective in an argument to get further from proving you're right and get closer to a mutual resolution. And we will encourage these players to talk not about their own feelings towards each other afterwards, but their feelings towards their characters. So they may take these experiences to start honing their own tools and approaches to improving their emotional literacy with the people that are close to them. So in essence, we're trying to improve the diplomacy of interpersonal relationships in a way that is mutually beneficial to both parties. And I'm sorry, I can't take credit for that last line. The reason it sounds so smart is owed to Dr. Jennifer Hazel. So Ruby, talk about sisters.
Okay, so this is our first scenario, sisters, and it is about the last moment that two sisters share with each other before one of them embarks on a lengthy overseas trip. The younger sister, Lucy, is waiting at the cab at their house. The older sister, Nat, is sitting across from her at their dining table. They don't know when they'll see each other again. While they get along with each other okay, their relationship is strained. They want to be able to connect with each other, they feel like they should be closer to each other, but they don't know how to express it. They spend the last of their time thinking about the perfect thing to say, but just as they're about to say it, the cab arrives, Lucy leaves, and they don't. That's just it.
Okay, so considering this is forced multiplayer, it requires earbuds and is pretty much only audio. We can't exactly demo the real thing for you, but we can textually walk you through a glimpse of what you can expect from sisters. So we're going to do that now. We're both going to play one of the roles. So Ruby's going to start. You're playing Lucy.
And I'm Lucy, yes.
Yeah, so take it away.
Okay, it feels a bit weird, like there's an odd air in the room. Your relationship with her is not bad, but not great. So you start counting everything you need to take to the airport with you on your hands. 1, got your toiletries. 2, got your comfy clothes. 3, got... What's that tune that she's tapping on the table? Is that the tune Dad used to sing to us?
Yeah, I think it is.
So that's what's happening on Lucy's side. Now for Nat.
Cool, so it feels weird to look at a blank screen, but you don't know where else to look. You search for icebreakers to start a conversation with your sister. You can't find the right thing to say. You have a repetitive rhythm in your head. You can't help it. You tap in time. Maybe you can hear that. You notice Lucy counting on her hands. You don't ask what. You just keep tapping.
Is that the tune Dad used to sing to us?
You think for a second. Oh, that's me. Yeah, I think it is. We're very professional. Okay, so we mentioned earlier that after the scenario ends, that we encourage conversation between the players about how they felt during the situation and how it can segue into talking about their own feelings towards an experience like this. And it turns out that making this has done just that for us. So Ruby, give them the proof.
Well, this story is actually based a little bit, not entirely, on my relationship with my own sister, which is great, but a little bit strained. So making this story in itself has actually made me put more of an active effort in with getting to know my real life sister. And I think that's really fucking cool. Oh, that's us. I'm on the left, she's on the right. Yeah, and I just hope that I can do that for other people as well. Because I'm sure that I'm not alone in feeling these things. We are never alone in feeling these things.
So what Ruby just said is actually word for word a conversation that we had about this scenario after Ruby had written it. And when she said we're never alone in feeling these things, I replied, do you know that's exactly my relationship with my sister too? Which it is. I'm the cool dude on the right in the red shirt. And making this has made me want to get to know the wonderful human being that is my sister better. I called her Bob when she was growing up, and I really want to get back to that relationship. So that's a brief overview of the scenario, a moment between us we'll be launching with very, very soon, we hope. Finally, we'd like to give you a quick snapshot of what we'll be developing next. So the first one, and these are all working titles by the way, the first one is Car Accident. We want it to be a surprise. It's about finding someone on the side of a desert road who's been in a fatal car accident. They're in the final minutes of their life, and together these two people discuss their lives up until this point, and they allow death to come gently. We'll be using haptic feedback in this one to simulate a heartbeat for the person in the car accident. It will slow, and it will eventually stop. And towards the end, the person who discovered the accident will ask if they can hold their hand. And at that point, their device too will start to vibrate with the heartbeat, and it too will slow and eventually stop.
Okay, so this is Through a Glass Screen, and it is about the difficulties of long-term relationships or friendships. So the characters, they'll be talking to each other over Skype, but the players, they'll be sitting on opposite sides of a literal glass screen. So they could try to reach out and touch each other, but they'll never quite get there.
We'll also have one called Hospital Roof, which will be about two people who don't know each other sharing a joint on the roof of a hospital while people they love are dying downstairs. We may actually encourage the two players to light one up for this scenario. We'll also have sharing music on a train, and this will be really familiar to any of you who have seen Richard Linklater's Before Sunrise. This is going to be about two people sharing a pair of earbuds on public transport, listening to their favourite song in one ear, while the other ear documents the process of them falling in love. And
Finally, watching clouds. So this one is literally about watching clouds and being present in the moment, and that's it.
So that's pretty much all we've got for you today. We're so fucking grateful to be here.
Really grateful.
Like super, it's amazing, and I mean like everything before us, and everything after us is just amazing. We just feel so thank you for coming out here. Thank you, Chad, for having us be part of this. Thank you so much.
Okay, next up we have a friend of mine from New South Wales, from Sydney, talking about a number of games that he's worked on. He's worked on a lot of games, and every single one is very unique and very interesting and very great. So with a huge round of applause, can I please ask for Daniel Linssen to come up onto the stage.
Can you hear me? Hi everyone. Today I wanted to, first of all, thank you so much, Jack, for having me. She said it before I forget. So today I'm just going to talk about 3 games that I've made that are all loosely tied together with the idea of exploration and looking at exploration in different ways. So the first game is called Planetarium. And this is a game that started off just as a visual toy. So I wanted to make these 3-dimensional clouds and these kind of cross-gen planets, and then I just kept adding stuff to it. So for example, we change the temperature and then the right temperature, we find that these have some creatures popping up. So these ones are beetles, that one has a crown on it or something. We can go to some other random planets. So here we have whole band 5. If we decrease the temperature, you see that it has yellow scores. You can also type in seeds planets. So if I go to Freeplay, for example, then we have this sort of audio planet. This one has light green lampreys, and one of them appears to be some sort of a dog character to the rest. So who knows? Random stuff happens. So I sort of made this, and I added these creatures in the names and all these stats and abilities and things. And then I wanted to add something else for people to look for if they wanted some sort of challenge or some sort of meaning for the game. So the first thing I started doing is just adding all of these secrets. So for example, if we go to Spiral, we get this nice weird planet here. If we go to something like Mars, then we have Mars with a description. If we go to Favorite's Glitch, it's a mess. So I just sort of think everything I could think of to make it disgusting. We can go to something like rockets, and little planet starts shooting off rockets and speed things up a bit. Just something random. And then I wanted to add this narrative to the game as well, and I was trying to work out the best way to do it, and I ended up with about 20 or so different planet seeds that are all loosely tied together. So I figured one thing people are going to do is try and look for Earth. And if they do that, they come across this planet, which isn't Earth, but it sort of gives you this little puzzle to solve. So anyone have any guesses? Yay, thank you. So we can go there, and we go to the next stage in the middle, and eventually we come to the planet Earth, which doesn't look anything like the actual planet Earth. So it's lazy. And this gives you some more text and sort of leads you on a little bit of an adventure. So it's like, oh, maybe let's look at Sardonia and see where that goes, and trying to work out what all this weird, mysterious stuff is. I think that's all I have for Planetarium. So the next game I'll talk about is called Sandstorm. And this was a game that I made because I wanted to try and capture the idea of feeling lost. And so, so the game drops you in this huge desert. It doesn't really tell you anything, and you can walk around, you pick up some stuff, and think that maybe you can read some notes. So it gives you a bit of flavor text. And I really wanted to try and make it as hard as possible to keep hold of your bearings. So for example, the camera sort of squibbles clockwise and counterclockwise. So you can just keep going in one direction, and eventually that direction shifts you. It didn't happen that time, but it normally does. And I also wanted to make the area fairly featureless. So there's a few things, like there's some shrubs here, there's a log here. but I tried to make them not very distinct so that you might come across a different log and have to ask yourself, is this the same way across the board, is this a different way? So the goal of the game is that you are on this pilgrimage to this sacred mountain or something, and you have to go through this desert which is more or less cursed. And the curse is that every time you wake up in the morning, your camel has wandered off, it's somehow escaped its harness. And maybe some of the little trinkets that you find have disappeared as well. So you have to go out and find it, and bring it back to your car and continue your journey. And so you do this for a few days, and each day gets a little bit harder as the camel wanders further and further away. And I'll probably just finish this day and I'll show you the next game. There were some trinkets I should have found, but I forgot to pick them up, so never mind. And then if you don't find your camel, bring it back and attach it to the cart and start riding when the day's over, then coming back happens to get it. What else? Yeah, moving on. So the last game I want to talk about is called Week, and this was made for a Living Day, which is a game jam. And so in Sandstorm, one of the things I aimed for is to try and tell the player as little as possible about the world. It's sort of using controls and stuff, and most of the time it's just spent on discovering what your goal is, how to go about your goal, and how you can sort of make use of your trinkets and your plan to get there. In this game, as you saw before, it just dumps you with everything you need to know. And so the goal of this game is more about sort of careful planning and kind of keeping track of where you are in this huge world. So you have an energy bar on the bottom left, which lets you do anything, and eventually if you hit 0, you go to sleep, which you'll see in a second. So I'm just going to light this craft around the ocean for a bit. Go now in the middle of the ocean, that seems safe. I'm going to come back here. And so as time goes on, your energy depletes, when you hit 0, you lose time. And over time, your food starts to run out, and you hit 0, then you're having a bad day. So the goal of this game is you're stranded on this huge island, and you've got turnips around for some reasons, that's good news. And you want to find this treasure somewhere on this island. You have to dig it up with your shovel. And in order to do that, so the first goal is more just to ignore all of that and just focus on getting food and keeping yourself well fed and sort of harvesting your turnips and making a little farm somewhere. And so over time you build up this little base. And then eventually your goal sort of stretches outwards when you become self-sufficient, and then you might find this map which is lying on the ground somewhere. And it's a map of the island, and this is a bit difficult because we are in the middle of the night, so everything's very tiny. But the map of the island doesn't show you where you are, it just shows you what the beaches are. So you have to sort of compare it to your surroundings and try and work out where you might be. So I think I am... I think I might be there, but I'm not quite sure. But if you look at these things, there's a bit of a shape there, and there's some trees. I think we might be there, but I'm not quite sure. So you find yourself in this huge island, and then the map also. I've dropped the map. Okay. The map also has these landmarks, which are really hard to see. But there's one there, there's one at the very top, there's one at the sort of middle right, and there's one on the top left as well. And these are all parts of the treasure map, which are going to show you where the treasure is. And in order to get there, you have to kind of plan this big journey. And I really wanted that to be the focus of the game, sort of making sure that you're traveling at daytime so you can actually see where you're going. Making sure that making sure that you bring the right tools. So you might bring an axe with you so you can go through the forest, you might bring a mini-map with you so you can see where you're going. But then when you get there, you have to drop one color so you can pick up your treasure map piece and bring it back to you. And then eventually you do that, and you construct the treasure map, cheated, here it is. And it doesn't give you any directions, it doesn't show you where to go, it just shows you a tiny little snippet of the world, and that's your target. And so then the goal is to then try and work out where the door might be. So you do that, you go over there, you dig up the shovel, and the game's like, ta-da, you did it, but nothing happens because you're still stuck in the island. So that's kind of a bit of a hit and miss thing going on. Anyway, that's about all I can do to say, so thank you very much.
We have Hien from Perth, who is an artist who I guess draws comics and illustrations, but also makes some interactive work, and he's collaborated with John Kane. Are you in the room, John, by any chance? No, maybe not. Anyway, so he has a game, well, the both of them have a game that they're working on called It Will Be Hard. And let's go ahead and watch that.
Hey everybody, my name is Hien. I am a comic artist and game developer living in Perth, Western Australia, and I'm so grateful to be able to present my work and present It Will Be Hard at Freeplay, so thank you so much for having me here. My work revolves a lot around things that make me happy and things that hopefully make other people happy too, like decent queer representation in games and comics, and characters of colors who don't die or suffer throughout the whole story, who get to be their own heroes and protagonists as well. I truly believe that games and comics and media in general can be a point of reflection for the audience, but also a respite for them to retreat to recharge, to learn, and then before going back to deal with their lives and whatever's happening in the world right now. Especially in the time where you can just wake up in the morning and there's a new apocalyptic fire that just pops out of nowhere. It gets exhausting. My computer just turned on mysteriously by itself. Happy Halloween, everybody. This is very spoopy. Anyway, so I apologize for the noise. But yes, so It Will Be Hard is a light, choose-your-own, gentle smut adventure. A little bit of a mouthful. It is something that I wrote and created and I drew, and a whole bunch of coding help from my friend John Kane of Gritfish fame. Hopefully he's in the audience here somewhere. Hey, John. It is a story retelling an intimate moment in time between two men on the night before their big move to build a new life together. So the way that this project sort of came to be is way back in March or in April, Louis of SK Bar put out a call submission for Blushbox Collective's XX Exhibition, which is a list of games that deals with sex and romance, right? And I really wanted to be a part of this exhibition because it's such a big part of my life. And I sort of threw out an idea that, hey, is a choose-your-own smut a game? And John chimed in and said that he will code the whole thing himself, which I'm very thankful and very lucky for. If you want to know more about how we sort of got to know each other, feel free to chat to John. He's definitely in Melbourne right now. Okay, so let's talk about the story of It Will Be Hard. And the way that I want to talk about this, I'm going to go all the way back to the very beginning, the very nugget of the story idea for this project. And for that, I would say, I am a gray asexual person. What that means is that I rarely ever experience sexual attraction I can recall maybe twice in my life that I have experienced something like that. And there is a difference between sexual attraction and sexual behaviors, right? I may not experience the sexual attraction, but I may still engage in sexual behaviors. For me, sexual behaviors are a very private thing, like most people, but it's also like a one-man sort of area that I want to sort of experience myself, and I don't particularly seek out to experience with other people. And that's sort of the first idea of it will be hard is I kind of want to imagine what my first time would be like, or a character who is like me, what they would be like in the first sexual encounter. And this sort of became a running theme in It Will Be Hard in this version, and also in the full version hopefully coming out next year. It will come out next year, I promise you that. To be announced release date. Anyway, the sort of running theme is that it's a lot about respect and boundaries, right? So you can sort of see this in Arthur, who is one of the two main characters in this comic. Arthur is almost disinterested in this whole moment with Harold, but he's still enjoying himself, and he understands his own identity and sort of utilize this side of him to tease Harold and to make him laugh, to laugh with him, and sort of make the whole thing a bit more enjoyable for the both of them. And this is sort of this feeds the idea of respect and boundaries of your own identities, but also respecting other people's identity and coming together to build a mutually fulfilling relationship. On the other hand, on the other side of the table of the equation, we have Harold, which is a representation of my body type. He is fat, he is a bigger body person, but he loves himself, and that's kind of really rare in games and media in general. Let me tell you, about fat representation in media. We're almost always like the butt of the joke, right? Because our bodies doesn't particularly belong to the traditional beauty values. And, because we're big, we eat a lot, therefore we eat a lot because we don't exercise, therefore we're lazy, and therefore we're undesirable. This whole thing, this whole circular idea is bad. It's like you're teaching people that, they don't have any values because their bodies look different. That is a lot of BS right there. It's really hard to see, so I really want Harold. He's a character I desperately want to see more in games and comics, because I don't see a lot of them. I might as well make one myself. Where he's fat, but he loves his body. He's fat and he loves his body. And his partners and the people around him love him and support him whenever there's something wrong that's happening in the world. And they respect him, and they respect his boundaries and understanding of his desires. And I want to see more of those characters in games and movies. So Arthur and Harold are both sort of like small fragments of my identity that sort of became their own person within these 28 pages and the full version as well. And I'm very happy and very lucky with that. I want to talk a little bit about the game mechanics. So because it's a light choose your own adventure, at certain points in the comic you get to choose which aspect of their relationship that you want to explore, or you are able to direct the way in which they sort of interact with one another. I really want, and I'm really happy to have this in the project, because having this like tiny little bit of interactivity gives the experience a little bit more excitement. I believe the readers, come out of this with a little bit more ownership of the experience that they have with the game. And it's I have a similar idea with my art style. My art style, I have, these little beady eyes, and that sort of revolves around this idea that Scott McCloud has in his book, Understanding Comics, is that the more simplified your style is, the easier it is for your audience to project themselves into the characters. So if you look at a really detailed portrait, you sort of see, yeah, that is a person that, you may be able to put yourself in their shoes, but there are very distinct different character. The more simplified the features are, the easier it is for the audience to say, hey, to project themselves into the characters. This combined with the interactivity, sort of like, I want the audience to bring themselves into, onto the table, to bring themselves to the table and sort of like protect themselves and make this story their own and come back with something out of it. Like maybe some joy, some respite, just something funny to look at. That's the general idea of it. But yeah, that's about it. And thank you so much for listening to me rambling. Oh, and hopefully this will have made it all the way to Melbourne, but I have physical copies of this game. I don't think anybody in Melbourne has seen it, so hopefully this is a treat for Freeplay folks. So I made these when I was invited as a guest at Supernova Perth. So thank you to Alicia Jade and the Banksia Project for that. I wanted to preserve the choose your own adventure sort of mechanics of this game, and I thought it would just be like a nice little physical relic that you can pick up and have a look through. So hopefully you enjoy that. Thank you so much for listening to me, and thank you so much for having me here. If you have any questions or any feedback, anything you need to say, feel free to reach out and contact me at Waving People on Twitter, and seek out John over in Melbourne right now. And hopefully you enjoy the work, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Bye.
Okay, so we're coming close to the end. We have 3 more projects left. Our next one is by a brand new studio / collective called PlayReactive. And PlayReactive makes all sorts of weird and interesting experiences. I don't know if they identify as game designers. Maybe some of them do. But they're a multidisciplinary crew who make immersive theatre-like experiences. And as you can see, we're about to see an interactive piece called Action Loop. And I actually have no idea what this project is. All I know is that it'll be great. And is that battery running? No, okay, no mind. It does take some time to set up, so Shannon has asked me to ramble a bit. That's okay. Yeah, so I have no idea what's about to happen. All that I was told was to do a 30-second recording of me saying, I don't even know what it was. It was like, hey, some things, basically. And apart from that, I have no idea what's about to happen, but it'll be great.
Hello. PlayReactive creates unique, interactive, sometimes immersive experiences. We're very excited to announce our newest project, which we can show you. We are building a physical theater here in Melbourne, on Church Street in Richmond. And this theater is dedicated to hosting and producing and creating just experimental, interactive live art. So we believe that that's a form of games that needs to be pushed even further than they are at the moment. So.
Chad, where are you? Parallel starts in 2 minutes. Can't wait for your presentation. Bye.
Hello, tech support. Oh, your problem. Okay, yeah, presentation broken. Yeah, okay, fix it. Okay, give me a second.
We're here to tell you a bit about this game that we've been working on for the past year and a bit. It's called Florence. It's the story of a young woman and the ups and downs of her first relationship. And the format of the work is, it's a mobile game. It's kind of told as a linear narrative. It's like a series of vignettes, and they're not quite mini games. They're like kind of interactions and studies about how we can use the touchscreen to evoke or emulate all the different sensations and emotions you go through during a relationship. And so what we're going to do here today is show you just a couple of levels from the game and talk about sort of the challenges we went through when designing them.
So we're going to start off at the beginning of the game. So creating a narrative game that's told through a series of vignettes of mini games presents a lot of interesting challenges. And one of those is how to open the game. And so when we start, we wanted Florence to be stuck in a routine, stuck in this boring life. And we're following with a theme of interactive teeth brushing mini games for tonight. So yeah, her life is dull and colourless, and the only bright colours we see are those in the images of her friends and social media, so she can kind of only see colour in other people's lives. And so Florence here feels like her life is a series of these smartphone app-like interfaces, where each daily activity from eating breakfast to going to work. It's some repetitive action that makes a progress bar fill up. So her life is kind of drearily gamified. And so we work with these kind of interactive metaphors to like tell her story. And some of them are quite cute or cheeky, like the game with which Florence makes these approach responses to her mum is kind of similar to like her tapping numbers at work, like showing that it's all kind of the same thing. So an interesting challenge in portraying boredom as a game designer is that you don't want to actually bore the player. So you want to make the game kind of fun, but dress it up in a way that makes it seem as if it's aesthetically like boring. So a lot of the heavy lifting is being done here with Ken's really great art and color grading. And then we end this level kind of coming full circle with Florence really stuck in a loop. And now we're going to jump ahead to a few levels.
So a couple of months have passed, and we now meet Florence, and she's just met this guy called Krish, and this is kind of the first guy she's ever dated, and we see them here on their first date. And what we wanted to portray here was the nervousness of going on your first date, how you just don't have the words to say to this amazing, beautiful person in front of you. And we talked a lot about different metaphors that we could use for that, and we kind of settled on like actually portraying speech as this physical speech bubble. And the idea would be that Florence's nervousness is portrayed like she actually has to put the words together. We wanted to stick with our motif of not showing any words, not using any language, and so we have this visual puzzle design. And you can see that as Florence gets more relaxed and more comfortable around Krish, putting the words together becomes easier. As another note, we're using sort of some of the language of comics and graphic novels, but we had to kind of adapt them for mobile devices. And not everyone is going to be using a giant iPad Pro like Sam here. A lot of players are going to be on iPhone and Android smartphone screens. And we had to adapt that for sort of the smaller size. And so we have, most of the time we only have this single column of panels. And we wanted to make use of sort of parallax and animation. And we felt that having this kind of scrolling style actually kind of emulated more like Facebook and web pages. So we kind of use sort of the very personal motifs of a smartphone. And so hopefully you've seen there how the mechanic got easier over time, and that kind of was a metaphor for, Florence's comfort over time.
So now we're going to jump ahead later again in the relationship to show you how we're representing a different part of the relationship. So many of the vignettes in this game are about moments that anyone who's been in a relationship can relate to, but these very ordinary common experiences are portrayed melodramatically in this extraordinary way with swelling cello music. So here we have what is the character's first argument, and we are reprising that jigsaw puzzle speech bubble mechanic, but this time with a negative inflection. So I should point out here that Ken's solving Florence's bubbles, but Krish's are automatic, and he's like the computer player. So the characters actually start fighting over the position of the camera, and the cuts, the little notches in the pieces start becoming more angular as the fights start to escalate, until eventually the characters start talking over each other and it becomes like a competitive game. And so there's no apparent cause for this argument, it kind of just comes from nowhere. And because this game has very little text, we don't rely on that visual or written language, verbal or written language. We have to sometimes struggle to find a good balance of how abstract to go, how symbolic to go. And so after a fight, you've got to make up. And so here we make the player actually, physically touch and turn Florence around so that the two of them are facing each other, prompting them to apologize and make up. And this interaction here at the end is kind of representative of the player's role in the story. So some people have asked whether there's going to be choices in the game, but the game's not really about that. The player's role is quite deliberately distanced from Florence, so you're not in control of her. You're there to kind of go through this experience with her, but it was very important to us that she maintain her agency. So the player's role is more one of empathy.
So that's about it from us. We're going to be at PAX showing you can play the full demo, and we hope you come out and check it out. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hello.
Yes, so hi everyone, I'm Playhouse House. I'm Stuart, that's Michael, Nico, and Jake. We started our studio maybe 4 years ago now to make our first game, True Blue. But today we want to talk about a Goose game that we're working on. It's a spoiler.
Thank you so much, Chad, for having us. Yeah, so before we get into the game itself, I'm going to start by talking a little bit about how we how we started out. In particular, why we decided to make the game about a goose in particular. So, to start, I'm going to sort of let you in on our inside info, industry secrets, and sort of show our original game design document, the seed that we used to grow this game into what it is now. Here it is. So like a year ago, at 10:50 p.m. at night, Stuart posted in Slack that we should make a game about this stock image of a goose. The rest was history. Yeah, and so then we did. We spent a little while kind of riffing on what we liked about geese, or at least the specific image of a goose. Why we think geese are funny. What it is semiotically in this goose that we want to think about. And also we settled on the idea that geese are always cross, as I say, at the very end there at 8:30 a.m. Geese are the worst. And also everyone in the whole world agrees with this idea. That's really harsh headlines. So yeah, there is this popular cultural idea that everyone has settled on, which is that geese are horrible. They're these aggressive, vindictive animals. They just sort of exist to ruin people's days. There's not necessarily any logic to what they do. They're just mean. But they're not dangerous or scary in the way that a tiger is. There's this mundanity to the way that they're scary. So this is another theme, another facet of geese that we're trying to capitalize on, I guess. This is really our version 2 of our game design document. When we came to a goose and you're horrible to people. We found ourselves really fascinated by geese, and I just wanted to make a game that expressed that fascination in some way. So we're gonna start the game now. This is our game. It's about this garden. It's having a lovely day, and he is watering his plants. Just kidding. Just bad for everyone there. Yeah, so we made a game about this goose. Our starting point was to have a game where you could control a goose. Before we started building our world, before we sort of laid out systems and mechanics, we basically wanted to make sure that it was interesting to be a goose. So we wanted to make a goose that was fun to control in isolation. And more to the point, we didn't want you to be sort of controlling the goose from a distance. We wanted you to really feel like you're embodying this goose. The control should reflect, and movement of the goose should reflect its essential gooseness. So we made sure that walking feels really nice and waddly and lovely. We make sure you can sort of crane your big long neck around. You can flap your wings. Moving out and flap them very dramatically. And most importantly, you can honk. We've been told that that's actually a quack. Wait, sorry. That's a honk. And also you can do all those things at once. Fully embody, the horrorness of a goose. And I'm going to give this microphone to Nico to talk about what came after that.
I think this one, does that work? Yes. Alright. So a big part of our design was that there'd be also these human characters. The second half was that the goose is being horrible to people, so we needed someone to be horrible too. So we added people to our game, and we knew that we had to make them as reactive as possible for them to be interesting. So we gave them responses like they like to watch you if you're in their way or nearby. If they hear a noise but they can't see where that noise is coming from, they'll come and look for you. And if you try and get too close to them, they'll push you away. So there's some involuntary movement there where they kind of flick you away from them, pushing you away. But beyond just running at people and honking at them, we decided that using items might be an interesting way to allow you to interact with these people. So as you can see, we've kind of filled the world with a bunch of little props, and we use those items that both the goose and the human characters as this language for communicating with the human characters in the game. So the very first system we made was one where they would tidy up. So if the goose moves something out of its place, then this fussy gardener would try and put it back. So this system created some of the conflict we wanted. The players like this agent of chaos, making a big mess all over the map, while the game tries to put it back together again. It will try and clean up after you, and there's a tension there that we like. To make some items more interesting, we gave the gardener items that they would use as well. So they like to use this trowel to dig around in the dirt, and we think that makes it a bit funnier to take the trowel away from them, because once you've got the trowel, they can't do their work anymore. There's this added layer to the joke. To add a bit of challenge, we also wanted items that might be hard to get to, harder to take than the ones that are just lying around on the ground. In a game with lots of characters, this might mean you put a guard at a doorway and put something locked up in a room. But in our garden, there's only one character, and we found that any item that was left on the ground might be hard to take when the gardener's around, but once they leave, it becomes too easy. So we put these special items on the gardener themselves. So there's keys on the gardener's belt, which are always well defended because they're always where the gardener is. We also made it so you can steal their hat. But to do so, you have to wait for the gardener to bend over, maybe to do some troweling. Or maybe they take it off to wipe their brow or something like that. We found found that the game that was based around making a mess, the game was based around making a mess and having someone clean it up. But because the scale was quite small, there's only one character, it's in quite a confined space, we found that the character's attention and their awareness was very important as a player. Making a mess or stealing an item when no one was looking was far easier than when someone was watching. So this new rhythm started to emerge in the game that was quite different than the straightforward antagonistic rampage we'd imagined early on.
Hello. So we realized the thing that we're making is actually starting to look more and more like a stealth game. Harassing people and causing chaos became a little monotonous after a while, and we realized that it was much more fun to more deliberately try to ruin the garden's day. The stealth game with planning, action, and recovery feels much more cheeky and playful when you're just trying to get someone wet with a sprinkler. We found that it didn't take much to turn stealth mechanics into a slapstick comedy mechanics. We see this game as a kind of interactive slapstick simulator that lets players create their own silent film style gags. Instead of planning assassinations, we ask the players to plan pranks. Like stealth games, we had these archetypal characters whose intentions and reactions were clearly communicated to the player and easy to interpret and manipulate. We wanted players to be able to watch the gardener go about their routine, plan a prank, and get a pretty good idea of how they would react to their efforts. So we started giving the gardener more cartoonish reactions. We added more bubbles to let the player know what they're thinking, allowing the player better opportunities for subversion. But unlike stealth games, we wanted our game to have the stakes of a slapstick comedy. Think less headshot and more face covered in soot and hair all pointy when you get shot by an explosion. Because there's no fail state, the Goose is always more of a nuisance than a real threat. We've been able to create a space to explore and play with a more resilient, flexible relationship between two characters. It's not scripted, it's not a capital R relationship game, but the game isn't worth playing without the relationship in there. I think this is really cool, and I think video games could use more relationships like this. It's something we're all very excited to explore further as the game develops. It's still a long way from release, so keep an eye out for it. Thanks for listening.
Thanks everyone.